sir. My name is Torregosa J2B Rule number 8. Action to avoid collision. Any action taken to avoid collision shall be taken in accordance with the rules of this part and shall, if the circumstances of this case admit, be positive, made in ample time and with due regards to the observance of good seamanship. Any alternation of course and or speed to avoid collision shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be large enough to be readily apparent to another vessel, observing visual or by radar as actions of small alternation of course and or speed should be avoided. If there is sufficient seam room, alternation of course alone may be the most effective action to avoid a close quarter situation provided that is made in good time. It's substantial and does not result in another close quarters situations. Action take to avoid collision with another vessel shall be such as to result in passing at a safe distance. The effectiveness of the action shall be carefully checked until the other vessel is finally passed and cleared. If necessary to avoid collision or allow more time to assess the situation, a vessel shall slacken her speed or take all away off by stopping or reversing her means of propulsions. A vessel which by any of these rules is required not to impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel shall be required by the circumstances of the case. Take early action to allow sufficient sea room for the safe passage of the another vessel. A vessel required not to impede the passage or safe passage of another vessel is not relieved of this obligation is approaching the another vessels so as to involve risk of collision, and shall when taking action have full regard to the action which may be required by the rules of this part. A vessel's that passage of which is not to be impeded remains fully obligated to comply with the rules of this part when the two vessels are approaching one another so as to involve risk of collisions. Rule number 9. Narrow channels. A vessel proceeding along the course of a narrow channel or fairway shall keep as near to the outer limit of the channel or fairway which lies on her starboard side as is safe and practicable. A vessel of less than 20 meters in length or sailing vessel shall not impede the passage of the vessel, which can safely navigate only with a narrow channel or fairway. A vessel engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of any another vessel navigating with a narrow channel or fairway. A vessel shall not cross a narrow channel or fairway if such cruising impedes the passage of a vessel which can safely navigate only within such channel or fairway. The latter vessels may use the sound signal prescribed in the Rules 34D if in a doubt as to the intention of the crossing vessels in a narrow channel or fairway when overtake can take place or any only if the vessels to be overtaken has to take action to permit safe passing. The vessels intending to overtake shall indicate her intention by sounding the appropriate signals prescribed in the Rule 34CI. The vessel to be overtaken shall, if the in agreement, sounds the appropriate signal prescribed in the Rule 34CII and takes step to permit safe passing. If a doubt, she must be sound the signals prescribed in Rule 34D. This rule does not relieve the overtaking vessels of their obligation under the Rule 13. A vessel nearing a bend or an area of a narrow channel or fairway where another vessel may be obscured by an intervening obstruction shall navigate with particular alertness. An action shall sound the appropriate signals prescribed in the Rule 34A. Any vessels, as if the circumstances of the case admit, avoid anchoring in a narrow channel. Rule 10. traffic separation schemes. These rules apply to the traffic separation schemes adopted by the organization and does not relieve any vessel of her obligation under any other rule. A vessel using a traffic separation scheme shall proceed in the appropriate traffic line in the general direction of traffic flow for that line. So far as practicable, keep clear of a traffic separation line or separation zone. Normally join or leave a traffic line at the termination of line, but when joining or leaving from either side shall do so at a small an angle to generate direction or traffic flow as practicable. Officials shall so far as practicable avoid crossing traffic lines, but if obligated to do so shall cross on a heading as nearly as practicable at right angles to the general direction of traffic flow. Officials shall not use an insured traffic zone when she can safely use the appropriate traffic line within the adjacent traffic separation scheme. However, vessels of less than 20 meters in length, sailing vessels, and vessels engaged in facing may use the inshore traffic zone. Notwithstanding subparagraph VI, a vessel may use an inshore traffic zone when en route to or from a port, offshore installation, or structure, pilot station, or any other place still situated within the inshore traffic zone, or to avoid immediate danger. A vessel other than a crossing vessel or a vessel joining or leaving a line shall not normally enter a separation zone or cruise a separation line except in case of emergency to avoid immediate danger. To engage in fishing within separation zone. A vessel navigating in areas near the terminations of traffic separation scheme shall do so with particular caution. A vessel shall so far as practicable avoid anchor is in a traffic separation scheme or in areas near its terminations. A vessel not using traffic separation scheme shall avoid it by a wide and margin. As a practicable, a vessels engaged in fishing shall not impede the passage of any vessel following a traffic line. A vessel of less than 20 meters is length or sailing vessels shall not impede the safe passage of a forward-driven vessels following a traffic line. A vessel restricted in her ability to maneuver when engaged in a operation for the maintenance of safety of navigation in the traffic separation scheme is exempted from complying with this rule to the extent necessary to carry out the operations. A vessel restricted in her ability to maneuver when engaged in operation for the laying servicing or picking up of a submarine cable with a traffic separation scheme is exempted from complying with this rule to the extent necessary to carry out the operation. Rule 11. Application. Rules in the section apply to vessels inside of one another. Rule 12. Sailing vessels. When the two sailing vessels are approaching one another so as to involve risk of collision, one of them shall keep out of the way of the another vessels as follow. Which is has the wind or different side the vessels which has the wind on port side shall keep out of the way of another when both have the wind on the same side. The vessel which is to windward shall keep out of the way of the vessel which is to leeward. If a vessel with the winds on the port side sees vessels to windward and cannot determine with certainty whether the other vessels has the wind on the port or on the starboard side, she shall keep out of the way of the other for the purpose of this rule. To windward side shall be deemed to be the sides opposite to that on which the Mainsail is carried, or in the case of square-rigged vessel, the side opposites to that on which the largest fore and aft sail is carried. And that's all, sir. My name is Dina Torregosa.